but we also got the draft and a great number of podcast and 49er guests on today. Stay tuned for a great show.
Let's go get him. Let's go get him today, man. Let's go. Hey, dominate on 3. 1, 2, 3, dominate.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of 49ers Red Zone. Today, we've got our special roundtable. We don't have 4 guests like last time. We got 5. We've got a full slate of guys. And before we get started with today's docket, I just wanted to let you guys introduce each other and tell us what you guys got going on. Repa Maru, we'll start with you.
Hey, thanks for having me on here. I've been a 49ers fan my whole life. I used to write for the early days of RedZone and Niners Cap Hell, mostly NFL draft and college guy. I've been evaluating prospects for the draft since 1999, 2000 year. So I appreciate you having me on.
Perfect. And I mean, I love me some 49ers Web Zone blood. That's where I currently write. Eric, how about you?
So I've been a Niners fan pretty much my entire life. I don't have a podcast, but if enough people start following me and enjoying some of the things I say on Twitter, we'll see. But I grew up in the Bay Area. My family's got season tickets, and I go to anywhere from 3 to 5 games a year. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, definitely. Brian, what about you? I know you got your podcast. One sec, Brian. I think you're muted right now.
There we go. I accidentally hit my mic mute. Yeah, my name is Brian. I got a podcast, Brian Carter 99, and I love the Niners. I grew up not really interested in football at all because I grew up in Seahawks country, about an hour away from Seattle. I moved to Northern California right when Harbaugh took over and fell in love with the Niners ever since. And 10 years as a fan now and got into draft prospecting and film breakdowns and all the fun stuff. I love it. And that's Fred Warner's. I got that this weekend in Vegas.
Oh, hell yeah.
The Vegas party. That's what's up. I mean, if people heard about the Seahawk thing, at least they know that you're a full 49er guy now. Jamal, what about you?
Yeah, what's going on, everybody? Legal name Jamal Armstrong, but you'll find me on Twitter at YoungJA, or you can call me Young Jaw. I've heard both. I'm comfortable with either one. My Twitter handle, Young Jaw 49er. I also have a podcast as well. Niner Talk with Jasper and Jamal is what it's currently called. We've got some changes potentially coming here pretty soon where the podcast may become exclusively mine. So stay tuned for that. I've got some interviews coming up pretty soon with some draft prospects, as well as a few guys who didn't go drafted as well. So stay tuned for the interviews I have coming on my channel for that. But yeah, just a blessing and honor to be here with you, Rohan, and the rest of you as well. I've had a chance to interact with many of you, not everybody, but many of you. Follow many of you guys on Twitter as well too. So it's just a blessing, honor to be here with you guys. And in a similar way to what Brian just said, I actually lived up in the Pacific Northwest as well too for 7 years. And I've always been a Niner fan. So I've grown up a Niner fan, originally from Southern California, and I've moved many different places. And along the way, I had a chance to live up there in the Pacific Northwest during those Legion of Boom years. So yeah, I hate the Seahawks, but I get where you're coming from. I understand it. And, props to you for hanging strong.
Yeah, and the last guy we got on the docket is Chris. And just a real quick shout out for Chris from the chat. Ray Martinez, another guy on 49ers Twitter. Is that a damn Raiders helmet in the back? Chris, go ahead, explain yourself and introduce yourself, man.
I will. Well, first off, to address the Raiders helmet, there's only one reason there's a Raiders helmet right there. That is signed by Ken Stabler. That's the only reason. Respect to the snake. That's it. Other than that, you will never catch me repping any Raiders stuff. But yeah, so I've been a Niner fan my whole life. I really got more into it closer to when Harbaugh came around, or really like when Singletary was around. So I've been following it ever since. So I run a podcast now. It's still pretty new. It's called The Polo Show. You can find it on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're also on Amazon Music. If you head to my Twitter, which is my display name right now, it's just Chris Polo and 2 underscores. I have a link tree with every platform there. I'm trying to get that going, trying to get more people on there as well. So yeah, that's something I've been up to, just running that podcast, starting to grow it. I've interacted with a lot of people in the 49er community on Twitter. We obviously have all those spaces that we're doing nonstop. So it's been really awesome just being able to throw myself into it and get to connect with everybody in this community. It's been really awesome. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, definitely. And let's get right into it, right? Because yesterday we got a big time news piece that I don't know about a lot of y'all, but I kind of was anticipating what happened at some point after the draft. Deebo Samuel refollows the 49ers on Instagram. Just quickly, what were your first thoughts when you heard the news, be it last night or tonight, guys?
This is something that I anticipated pretty much from the beginning. The 49ers past history with this regime is one of not bowing to trade requests or demands. And once it became clear that they weren't willing to trade him, his options got narrowed down pretty dramatically. The new collective bargaining agreement makes it very difficult to hold out. All it really would do is delay his own free agency. So he had very little in the way of leverage. And ultimately, he had the choice of getting paid this year with the Niners or not getting paid. So, I expected that it would smooth itself over.
Yeah, I'm curious to see that, just because he decided to refollow the Niners on Instagram and stuff, is there actually like unofficial contract negotiations starting to heat up, official or unofficial? I do know that, someone of like Deebo's character and stuff, I do think at the end of the day, if we do give him the money and pay him what he wants, he's going to be more than happy playing here in the Bay. So
yeah, and I believe that it was a contract ploy that his agent really pushed on him, and he followed the same route AJ Brown did, and when that didn't work out, then no hard feelings, just kind of back to what's best for him next.
Yeah, that AJ or go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that leading up to the draft, that was probably when he was really trying to push that leverage to get that contract done, just because when the draft's coming around, there's more pressure for a potential trade. Like Jets are going to be calling, the Lions are calling, the Ravens, the Packers, the Chiefs, whoever. And I think that was just trying to apply more pressure, because it's like, hey, you better get a deal done with me, or else if you don't trade me now, you're not going to get immediate compensation. So I feel like now that the draft is kind of passed, a lot of that situation, it's kind of just simmered down. A lot of the tension simmered down, because now it's just between now and then it's camp. And at that point, camp is around when they got like those Warner and those Kittle deals done anyway. So there's a lot of time for that to mend. There's a lot of, stuff that's probably been happening behind the scenes, where the draft is kind of like, it was the climax probably of like this whole situation, because we were all waiting for the 10th pick to come around, like what's going to happen. And once it came and went, it just kind of all settled down at that point. It doesn't feel as like tense anymore. So I think we're just going to kind of see it gradually improve. Hopefully they can get a deal done this offseason. But yeah, I do think that it was just a leverage thing, and the draft was kind of the end of a lot of that. And the Niners were calling that bluff, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, that's a great point, definitely. Because when you look at it, right, Deebo Samuel, what was the main objective of this entire stance? Sure, it was to get to a new team, potentially, but I mean, this new stance of him refollowing the team doesn't necessarily follow that. But most importantly, it was for him to get his money. And the number one way for you to get your money, and especially to get that contract, like, because right now there is still uncertainty whether Deebo Samuel will play this season on his rookie contract or on an extension. However, if he got the trade that he wished, guess what? That extension follows right after. You just saw what happened with AJ Brown. That 4-year, $100 million deal came it was reported as soon as that trade came into place, and likely was negotiated prior to the draft. So if Deebo Samuel gets moved on draft day or prior to draft day, that means his money is secured, and he no longer has to think anymore or dwell over that financial issue going into his future, and really he gets what he wanted all along. And so, yeah, I do agree with that point, Chris. Brian, what do you think?
I was just gonna say, I heard that that AJ Brown trade as well as deal basically all came together in about 7 hours. because he didn't realize that he was about to be traded, and then when he did realize it was a thing, like I guess it was basically 7 hours from like when he realized it was a possibility to when it actually happened and there was a deal in place. So these deals can get done really fast. I never thought Deebo was going to go anywhere, especially after finding out the embarrassing offers that they were giving us. Like, yeah, we'll give you pick 10, but we want a second back along with Deebo. I hope that Lynch and Shanahan just like laughed as they slammed the phone because that's embarrassing.
That's some King's ransom, huh?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, sure.
Yeah, you know.
One other thing sorry.
Oh no, I
Go
was
ahead.
One other thing I want.
Go ahead, Chris. Or
Yeah,
Oh,
read
no, it
Mark.
wasn't me.
I wanted to add that the AJ Brown deal, once it was announced, not only set the floor, but also set a sort of ceiling for what Deebo Samuel can expect from the extension.
It's
You know,
probably
where
gonna
he
get pretty
comes
close
in
to
at that APY, you're no longer going to blow that 30 million or whatever, you know, he might have hoped for. They're all four of these receivers, DK and McLaurin and Deebo and AJ, they're all going to fall in a pretty close range. So once that first contract is signed, you have a pretty good framework for the other three. And now, whether he's plays for the Niners or somewhere else, he knows about what he's going to be offered. So, you know, the impetus for a trade isn't really there anymore. You get my
Well, you got to think the deal that just came out there for AJ Brown on draft night gives the 49ers even more leverage than they already had, right? So we've been talking about, and Rohan, I was on your show, what, 3 weeks ago? Just 3 weeks ago, was it? 2-3 weeks ago, just that we talked about this same situation. And I believe that each of you guys touched on the point very, very well. And we talked about this as well before, talking about what leverage does Deebo actually have? What actual leverage is there? And there's people who said he has no leverage. There's people who have said he has some leverage. And then there's those who are just like, whatever. Well, I'd always said he has a little bit of leverage. And the little leverage that he has was more about the exterior, the external, what people are thinking on the outside. Now, does that affect necessarily what the 49ers are going to do? Does that affect their plan? No, not necessarily. But what can he do? He can keep applying outside pressure because that was the only leverage in my mind. That was the only leverage he ever had. And so hearing now, you know, we see AJ Brown got moved. He got traded on draft night. Well, what's the difference between AJ Brown's negotiations and Deebo Samuel and the Niners? The only thing that comes to my mind is AJ Brown was happy to be quiet about it. That's about it, right? Same agent. He just so happened to be quiet about it. Okay, great. So I think this just bodes well for the 49ers. And one thing that I think that each of you guys were kind of touching on that I just want to like hit right on the nail is the fact that what Deebo Samuel was doing prior to the draft and up until the draft actually, in my opinion, and I think you guys will agree with this as well too, was beneficial to everyone involved. Sure, maybe the pressure and everything, that isn't a good look, and people don't like that, especially if you're coming from a fan's perspective of wanting Deebo Samuel to be on the team. But that added pressure and saying, listen, if I don't get my money, I want to be traded. Well, if we do actually have to trade him, that actually benefits the 49ers as well too, if they decide they wanted to trade him, because they could actually get some draft capital back as well, rather than him starting this talking about it a lot more maybe after the draft, like, oh, trade me now because I'm just not going to sign any deal that you guys ever want to put out there. So one thing that I think that you guys all touched on really well that I just wanted to hammer home was, well, I think any little bit of leverage that he had, he used it. The 49ers, as I think Chris had said as well, called his bluff, if that's what we want to call it. And now I'm not saying we won't hear from him ever again, or it's going to be really quiet. I'll even go as far to say that there's going to be more reports that come out. But I think that everybody here on this panel and those who are tuned in are also smart enough to say, okay, every report that comes out doesn't necessarily mean it's true. Like, I never believe Deebo Samuel cares about how he's being used in the offense. I don't think he just wants to be a wide receiver. We've heard Deebo Samuel talk about being a wide back. We've heard him talk about, we've seen his play on the field. The dude is an alpha. The dude wants the ball in his hands by any means because he wants to score. And I think a lot of us would say, in many ways, he carried us to the playoffs as well, too. So that being said, there's going to be a lot of reports that come out. We can choose, what to believe or not. But if you go by what Deebo Samuel has said and by all of his actions leading up, we know the dude wants his money. We know he wants guaranteed money. So the A.J. Brown deal that just came out, I think only helps the 49ers in the framework for a deal. Yeah. Does that mean it'll happen tomorrow? No, not necessarily. Does that mean it'll happen closer to camp? Probably. That's usually kind of when the 49ers get deals done. But as I said a few weeks back, Rohan, I don't think that it's a tradition that they get it done then. I think that's just how business works. It takes time on all sides. Deebo Samuel and his reps have things that they need to agree on. And the 49ers, as well as our side, have things that we're not willing to budge on. I think some of this stuff just takes time. 49ers called him on his bluff, and we'll see where it goes from here.
It's a lot of nitpicking verbiage too, like these contracts. Like it's very easy to say like, oh, like 20 million average, and then if you hit like, Pro Bowl, then it's like 25 million, and it's this much guaranteed, and then there's this much for injury, but then there's these contracts. Like I've never seen an NFL contract, but I'm pretty sure it's probably like a mortgage contract. You buy a house and it's like this thick. And it's like, all right, you got to sign here, initial here. These are the stipulations here. And then you spend like weeks going over it with your attorneys and your contract guys. And I'm sure there's, going to be stipulations in there. Like, if I carry the ball more than 20 times in a season in my second season, then it kicks off like this 3rd-year incentive. And who knows how many weird little incentives. And Parag Maroth loves to make these complicated team-friendly like contracts with like ins and outs and everything and options. So who knows how long it's going to take. I do wonder though, with this same guy being the agent for Deebo, McLaurin, Metcalf, and AJ Brown, if that does put a little bit of pressure on the teams to get it done faster, because every player wants to be the highest paid and he wants every deal to be the biggest one. So does that mean that you want to maybe pay Deebo first before the other guys, because the other guys are going to half up by $1 million and then half up by $500,000 or whatever?
Yeah.
Well, on that point, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Eric.
AJ Brown's getting 57 or I think 57 and some change million guaranteed. And, the Niners, most amount of money they've ever given in guaranteed money was to Jimmy, I think around 44. And then Trent Williams, which was right around
48.9, something like that.
Yeah. And so you would think that, Deebo's got to be getting at least 60, maybe 63, 65.
That's been my guess.
Yeah.
60.
I heard it was actually only like 40 million, and then the other 17 that makes it 57 is only if he's is an injury guarantee.
So I can clear that up because obviously again, I wanted to study, but it's complicated. You're right. So there are like a couple of numbers, right? Guaranteed at signing, then total guarantees, which involves the guaranteed at signing plus the injury guaranteed for injury money. And the 49ers, they're known for mainly using the guarantees as injury guarantees. You've seen it with the Deebo contract where $87.5 million was involved in the deal. However, he only got $19.5 million at signing. The remainder of the guarantees was for injury, hence why it's been a little bit of a struggle for the 49ers over the past couple of seasons, because they've been locked into those injury guarantees every single season and haven't cut him. So for Deebo Samuel, the number at the moment for AJ Brown was 40 million. Now, do I think Deebo Samuel will settle for that low 40 million? No. But I at least believe that Deebo Samuel number provides an equilibrium, because now you have the Tyreek Hill number at 52.5 million and the AJ Brown number at 40 million. The good middle ground is that 46 to 48 million range in terms of guaranteed money. And what that essentially means is the 49ers are looking to guarantee 2 years of Deebo Samuel's contract. That'll be probably the second year and the third year, because he'll probably still end up playing this year on that $4 million cap hit. And so when you look at it, they're looking to guarantee 2 years. It'll essentially be a 3-year deal, just like AJ Brown's deal is essentially a 3-year, $57 million contract. And then the 49ers and Deebo Samuel, then after that, can either say, okay, if it doesn't work out, you move on. But in the likelihood that it does work out, you then negotiate and yet another extension to keep Deebo Samuel 49er essentially for life. But Matt brings up a good question in the comment section. If they make him play out his rookie deal, they'll franchise him next year and then trade him. What do you guys think is the likelihood that Deebo Samuel, or at least what's your prediction? Do you think that Deebo Samuel will end up remaining a 49er and signing a long-term extension this year or not? We can go ahead in the
Yeah.
roundtable as well.
Yes, I believe that Deebo has wanted very much to get paid this year, and that was where the trade demands came in. He didn't want to wait around until July and then see what the Niners offered, and then if that didn't offer what he liked, he could no longer really be traded. So he was trying to push for a deal now, and the Niners didn't want to negotiate now, and that's kind of, I think, where that came from. But Deebo definitely wants to get his money this year, and I don't expect that he's going to want to wait and then be franchised, and the Niners can franchise him again after that. So they really have 3 years of control right now. And yeah, I don't foresee, the Niners obviously are willing to pay him or they would have traded him. So I think both sides want to get a deal done, and Deebo wants his bonus, signing bonus this year. So I do believe that he will see kind of the writing on the wall and take the best deal he can get.
Yeah, I think you said the big thing right there was signing bonus, because if Deebo doesn't sign an extension, then he's making like $4 million this year, and then next year he's hoping to get paid. If he signs an extension, the instant he signs that extension, he gets that fat signing bonus, whatever that big number is, and that's like, hey man, go buy yourself a couple houses or whatever you want to do. Go
set your family up. Yeah.
Do whatever you want to do, but like you're getting that money like today when ink meets paper. So there's definitely an incentive to get it done now.
Yeah, and I mean, I totally can understand why he wants to get a contract done this offseason. I mean, especially how the Niners used him a lot last year, a lot more in the running game. I think it was against Jacksonville. We were up 3 or 4 scores, and we still had him running the A-gaps up the middle, and that's, running backs doing that stuff, there's not a lot of longevity to that. And so getting your money now, because there's not, like Shanahan said, no one's promised tomorrow, in the sense that, what would happen to him if he got hurt? I mean, he did have an injury and coming into COVID 2020 with the Jones fracture. And then, he wasn't in the best shape because you can't do much on your foot. And, that led to a couple hamstring injuries as well. So yeah, no, it totally makes sense why he wants to get this done this offseason. So,
and you make great points there, Eric. I agree 100%. It's good to hear you say that too, because I think a lot of people forget. I don't want to say forget. Just put yourself in his shoes, right? He's not just an athlete. He's not just someone that goes on the field and just plays with he's an intelligent human being, right? And so if you're an intelligent human being who has not only the ability to go on the football field and make plays and be one of the top 3 weapons in the league, he's also a product and a service. And so he's thinking about it that way as well too. Like, okay, I'm eligible for an extension now coming off of an all-pro season. Okay, great. So maybe do I want to wait and bank on myself doing this again next year? I mean, I could do that, but I also live in the real world, and I also understand that injuries can happen. That doesn't mean they will, but they can. So if I put myself in Deebo Samuel's shoes, am I looking for an extension this offseason? Oh, you're damn right I am, especially the way that I'm getting used in this offense. I have the ability to go into the backfield. I have the ability to line in the slot. I have the ability to line out wide. And everything that you've asked me to do, I've been able to do it at an elite level. So I just wanted to mention that, because I do think that people do think about it from a fan perspective, which is absolutely fine, but also to remember that if you put yourself in his shoes, we would be asking for our money as well too. The last thing I'll say, just in regards to the question that Matt brought up as well too, I think, and I'm going to put myself out there, this might hurt some other franchises' feelings if they were to listen and hear this, but there are certain, I think, organizations who do business a certain way, and I do not see the 49ers as a team that would want to franchise tag him and have him play on a franchise tag. Now, if it were to come to that situation, would he do it? Yeah, I think so, because that's a lot of guaranteed money for him on that 1-year deal. Like, he would take that money. I believe it's the average of the top 10 wide receivers. If he were to get franchise tag, I think that's what it is, right?
Yeah, it is.
For that 1 year. So of course he would do it.
Right.
Would he do it happily? That who knows about that? I'm not Deebo Samuel, so I can't answer on that. But I mentioned that because I just don't think the 49ers do business that way. If it were to come to that, I truly think they would probably look for a trade before that were to happen. But if it were to happen, I think that he would do it. Now, I think the 49ers will get a deal done with him long term. I definitely expect that. But in this hypothetical situation that he's talking about him finishing his contract, franchise tagging him, then trading him, the only way I could even see that being a possibility is if we see the development from Danny Gray, if we get other wide receivers, next year as well too, or even somebody that comes in free agency. Like if they have contingency plans there and these guys are also like blossoming into the players that they can become at their highest peak, then you can start having the flexibility to potentially look at that and say, can we get similar production out of a Danny Gray? That's not going to be the same way as a Deebo Samuel. Is this guy reaching his peak though with Trey Lance to be able to potentially move off of a Deebo Samuel? I don't think anyone wants to do that, but that's the only way I can start thinking about it as, okay, maybe they would entertain the idea of it.
Yeah, and to kind of answer, that question, I was talking about this last night. I was on the Niner Fanatic podcast with Peter Lucas, and we were kind of talking about this same scenario of a Deebo Samuel situation in terms of getting a deal done. And yeah, and basically, what I was saying was, for me, if he's going to be a Niner in 2023, a deal has to get done in this offseason, because if the indication really is that there's been some personal stuff, he's not really talking to them a lot this offseason, not really cooperating. If you put him out there this year, right, and he's on that same rookie deal, let's say he gets injured or something and he misses 6 games. What are teams going to do in free agency? They're going to use that against him. Like, oh, that's a couple years now. You've missed a chunk of games. We can't really rely on you. We can't guarantee you as much money. We're going to throw the injury prone tag on you. And then at that point, maybe that affects his negotiation process in that offseason. Maybe it makes him not really want to play for the Niners as much because he was kind of demanding this deal to avoid that situation. So if something like that were to happen, right, we're talking hypothetical. And also maybe there is a team out there, like let's say maybe the Jets are still like, you know what, we don't care. We're still going to throw the money at him. And it's a number that the Niners can't really pay up. And Deebo's going to be like, you know what, peace. They're giving me the money that I wanted anyways. You guys didn't give it to me. You risk, really my one time to really cash out on a big contract. I'm going to go play with Robert Saleh. Could be a situation like that. So maybe they do franchise tag him and trade him. But the thing is also, I don't see him playing on the franchise tag only because kind of like what Jamal just said, like, are they really going to guarantee that much money? And are they really going to do business that way? I don't really see it. So to me, you have to get a deal done this offseason, or else I think 2022 really could possibly be his last season as a Niner, in my opinion.
Yeah, this isn't the Commanders. It's obviously he's not Kirk Cousins. He's not a quarterback. But with all due respect, we don't do business that way.
Yeah, we do not.
I'm still calling the football team.
Yeah. I think having the tag there as a means of leverage is something that the Niners can use in negotiations this year. But no, I don't think that they would in the end want to sit him through 2 years of franchise tags and then let him walk and have that kind of acrimonious relationship. And I think in that event, you're probably right. They might apply the tag and try to do a last minute extension and then maybe trade him if that fails. But yeah, I ultimately, I think his injury history and that leverage will lead him to signing the extension just because there's so much risk of playing out that rookie deal and then something going wrong. And then suddenly you're looking at, 15, 16 million APY instead of 25. And, I don't think that he's going to ultimately want to take that risk, and the Niners are going to be willing to pay it, reasonably. So.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, Deebo Samuel, this situation with how the 49ers have resolved situations like this in the past, there is like that optimism, right? In a way that a deal will eventually get done. Whatever it may be, it seems the indication, at least it seems like that it might be done earlier than we've seen prior deals being done. For one, the 49ers have been at the table for a while, and they understand that they can't really negotiate in the way that they normally negotiate, because this is the first time a situation's really blown up in their face from the player itself, not necessarily the agent like it did with George Kittle, but the player itself. So it will be a little more of a cautious path now. But I think that this situation, it seems on the verge of being somewhat resolved. Obviously, it'll take time, like Jamal said earlier. because contracts, in a way, they do take time. There's so many different little complicated things that you have to sort out. But for the Deebo situation, I think we got a good resolve on that. Now, talking about the draft, I want everyone to just tell me their favorite prospect that we drafted. Let's start with the drafted players first. Who was your favorite guy? And just tell me why. Reaper Morrow, we can start with you.
Nick Zakel's, maybe not pronouncing name perfectly, was the first one that really jumped at, and I just said I love that pick. A player who is off the charts athletically, but also just a nasty physical blocker, and someone that I think was probably 100 or so picks behind where his value was, at least on my board. So I think that's one that we're going to ultimately look back in a couple of years, like Greenlaw or Kittle, maybe that extreme, but we're going to look back in a couple of years and go, what in the world were teams thinking? Where you had, you let this player fall that far, and the Niners have a great track record in the latter rounds of pulling starters and great production there. And I think that he's going to be that one this year.
My favorite prospect that we ended up getting drafted was actually Drake Jackson. I actually saw him a decent amount out of USC, and it shouldn't be really surprising that the Niners drafted another player to go on their defensive line. I mean, they've shown year after year that at least defensively, that's where they live. They live and they want to dominate in the trenches, whether to get after the quarterback or to stop the run. And so I'm honestly really high on him. He ran a 4.5 40, and I think he's going to line up on the other side against Bosa. I don't expect him to start right away, but I do think as the season goes on, another depth piece, but a guy who's actually going to get a lot of snaps and a guy who could come in and make an immediate impact. Now, I know one of the knocks against him was some of his hand techniques and everything, but with Chris Eric, our defensive line coach, I've got the utmost confidence and respect that he'll come in and play immediately. So
I like a few of them. Just keeping it real, like he said right there, Drake Jackson, pumped about that one. I didn't like them picking the running back that early, but after watching some of him, I'm like, all right, this guy likes to, just kind of bulldoze through people, and that could be fun. But I will say the one I want to bring up is the fourth round offensive lineman, Spencer Burford, just because I didn't really have him on my radar beforehand. And then once we drafted him, I went and I rewatched all of his Senior Bowl reps, and that dude was dominant at the Senior Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I like about the Senior Bowl is that it puts you up against the proper level of competition to like properly scout guys. You know what I mean? Like these aren't just like some random guy who's playing on a team, but he's not going to be in the NFL. It's like these are legit NFL prospects. They're going to be drafted. You're going to be drafted. How do you do against other like legit NFL prospects? And I remember watching just Spencer Burford practice reps and being like, dude, this kid's legit. So I'm pumped about him. I think he has a legit opportunity to start on the offensive line. He impressed me. He impressed me with that. I haven't watched much film yet, so I'll be honest, I haven't watched UTSA film, but the Senior Bowl practice reps that I saw, he looked really good, and that excited me.
Yeah, that's a great point. I don't know if many of you know this, but I'm a USC fan, so obviously I like Drake Jackson. One thing I don't like is obviously being a USC fan, we didn't use him right throughout his time at USC. Now, his freshman year, thought he was really good, had a really good freshman season, but moving him around, having him fluctuate his weight, going through 2 to 3 different schemes, different defensive coordinators, I'd say it's hard to find some consistency and a real good rhythm, and to be able to consistently put out good tape at whatever position it is you're really going to be at. Go ahead.
almost like Jimmy Ward's first few years. It's like, is he corner,
Corner,
safety,
safety,
nickel?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely that. And so, but that's back to the next point I was just going to make. He was asked to do so many different things. He was asked to fluctuate his weight. And in my personal opinion, he was solid at it. Whatever he was asked to do, he was able to be a solid player because I think he's a really good athlete. First and foremost, he's a really good athlete. I've seen not a lot of people, but I've seen some people start to compare him to Aldon Smith, which I don't like to hear. It's a little bit cringy to me because I'm sorry, you shouldn't be comparing him to Aldon Smith right away. Let the dude do something in the NFL first to give me a reason to even say that. But even then, like, there's a lot of other guys we can give him that we could use to give him props rather than going to the extreme, having had played for the 49ers. But I love his versatility. I love that he's a trooper and was able to line up as an outside linebacker as well as being able to be an effective defensive end. So, I mean, I could talk about him for a while, but I love that pick. I think it's a pick that I think will really pay off. Now, he's not a perfect prospect. He's a really good prospect. Not perfect. I did see sometimes where he takes some plays off or, his motor didn't seem to run the highest on every single play. Do I fault him for that? Yeah, a little bit. But at the same time, I also think Chris Kasarik is the guy to pull all of that out of him. Every 49ers fan knows who Chris Kasarik is, and for good reason. You put a dog back there, and he'll probably be able to get a dog to get a sack. Like, the dude's a beast. The dude's great. And that's what the 49ers do, right? They go for these certain traits. And that's kind of looking back on it now, having been 1 week since the draft had started. There's the pupper. No, but one of the things that I like, and just looking back at this draft, clearly the 49ers value traits. They value traits, and they look for traits that they've had in some of the guys that they've had in the past. I look at Samuel Womack. Yeah, he's an inch or two taller than K'Wan Williams, but that's a K'Wan Williams type of clone. He's faster than K'Wan Williams, but same type of player, in my opinion. Who else? Look at Danny Gray. He's a fast dude that's early on in his career anyway. I expect him to be Travis Benjamin-like. I think he's going to be, clear out routes. I expect him to grow to be more than that. But early on in his career, I believe that he's going to be Travis Benjamin-like. Kalia Davis, he reminds me a lot of DJ Jones. So clearly they go for traits, right? A guy with 6 foot, 300 pounds. Kalia Davis, I think, has a chance to be a really good player as well, too. So my main point, I like Drake Jackson a lot. I like Danny Gray quite a bit, too. But clearly the 49ers go for certain traits, and they've been able to really get good production out of those traits or help develop those guys into good players. So as much as maybe I'm with you, Brian. I didn't like that. I didn't like the value of the pick of the running back there, but I like the player. He's not perfect either, but I like the player, and I think that at this point, I think the 49ers deserve the benefit of the doubt that they know what they're doing right now. Maybe I didn't like what they did, but they deserve that benefit of the doubt in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, you guys all make great points. But go ahead.
I think when we talk about value, a lot of our perception of the value of a pick is based on media projections, and we don't get to see, what the draft boards of these teams look like. So while we might, look at it and say, well, that looks like a reach in the third round, but we don't know. There could have been, a dozen teams that had him with a third or early fourth round grade. And, the media is often, a bit off the mark. We saw with Donovan West, everyone in the media had him in, third round and goes completely undrafted. And so, it's a little bit tinged, based on media projections. And I think the Niners, like you said, definitely deserve the benefit of the doubt when it comes to where they have guys valued on their draft board. And one guy that we hadn't brought up, Tariq Castro-Fields, I think has some special traits that we're talking about. And I think he has a chance to be really good long-term, incredible athlete. And, as you said, the Niners value traits, maybe above necessarily production or, everything you see on tape. They're looking for specific traits for your position that they can mold into something long-term.
Yeah. No, I agree with pretty much everything you guys said. Listen, my favorite pick, this is going to shock some people, Brock Purdy. Listen, here's why. You start Jimmy Garoppolo all season. You let him sit and learn behind him in 2022. Okay. Then you extend Jimmy Garoppolo. Yes, you extend
This
him.
guy.
And then next year, you have a triple-headed quarterback room with Garoppolo, Trey Lance, and Brock Purdy. And John Lynch is talking about how great of a problem that is to have next year. And you have the best quarterback room in the NFL. No, I'm just playing.
Chris, I hate you.
And then
But,
you get a flip Sudfeld for a first rounder.
Yes, or in a four. Who cares? No, my favorite pick was Drake Jackson just because of exactly everything Jamal was saying. He was not used correctly. You put a year of him and Chris Kasarik, like the way he's going to be utilizing him correctly. Like they have all this tape on him. They know exactly how they want to use him in their defense on the opposite side of Nick Bosa. Like that's really what's about. Look at what they did on their defense, right? People are freaking out about safety, and I get it, but when they added Charvarius Ward, that cleans up things in the secondary. Now you're adding someone else who has the potential to be that starter every single Sunday on the opposite side of Nick Bosa, where if you have Bosa playing and you have Armstead playing well inside and Kinlaw playing well inside, now you have Drake Jackson and other rotational guys. Nick Bosa, who was double teamed the most in the NFL, if you can take that pressure off of him, you've improved your pass rush, you've improved your secondary, and that's where your defense is going to be really locked down. So I love the Drake Jackson pick because he's a beast. He's a beast, and if you use him correctly and you have him playing at his comfortable weight, I think that can just be incredible for the Niners, especially just for Nick Bosa, getting him some help. I mean, look at the numbers he put up while being double teamed the most in the league. So that's was my favorite pick. I also really did like the Tyrion Davis-Price pick, not where he was picked at, but again, like you guys are mentioning, and I brought this up last night too, there probably was a team around that area in the draft where they had good indication he was going to get taken, so that's probably why they took him there. But if you think about the situation they have, right, Elijah Mitchell was used at a higher volume than most running backs are ever used in a Kyle Shanahan offense, and he was injured a lot to the point where the whole running back room was injured. They had to go to Deebo Samuel, and you can tell you don't really want to use him as much as they did last year like that, just because it can be really detrimental to his health. So Tyrion Davis-Price being a physical guy, personally, I feel like they're drafting him that high. He's not coming in to just be some rotational back who barely gets usage like Trey Sermon was barely seeing the field. I think this dude's coming in with possibly the expectations to have a big contribution in the backfield because I think they really want to be able to split those carries up because they're kind of a running back by committee team. And I think they want to divide it up a little bit more. Maybe Trey Sermon isn't like as bad as we all think he is, and they just want someone else to get in the mix with him this year. I don't know if Jeff Wilson makes the team or what happens there, but if you can split it up and get good production from these running backs and you're able to keep Elijah Mitchell more fresh, you're able to keep Deebo more fresh and just utilize him as a receiver with Trey Lance, I think that could be what they're going for. I mean, look at 2019. Matt Breida for a time was leading the NFL in yards per carry, right? Like the production they get from these running backs is insane. Like there might be someone else who comes on this team who we had no idea about and ends up getting like 4 starts next year. That's just the way that they develop running backs. So I really did like that pick. I have high expectations for it just because this is the second year in a row they're picking a running back in that 3rd round. So I'm expecting some serious production if they're willing to do that a second year in a row for this guy. But yeah, I liked those 2 picks.
Yeah, the Ty Davis-Price, he's fun. I remember I heard Chris Sims had him ranked as like his 4th or 5th top running back, and I was like, really? Like I haven't even heard of this guy. And then last night I watched like 4 games of his last night, just like every carry in like 4 games. You know, YouTube does that. You do like Ty Davis-Price versus, and it shows you like every run, every play, and the dude just like runs through tackles, and like you hit him on the side, he keeps running. You hit him on the front, and he just like runs through you. You get on top of him, and he just
doesn't
drags
stop
you.
turning.
He just keeps on going. He's like a little I don't know. He's like a little like locomotive train or a bulldozer or something. But it's like you try and drag him down, he just gets like 3, 4, 5 yards like every single time after contact. And I know it's one thing that Elijah Mitchell, I love Elijah Mitchell, actually wanted the Niners to draft him before they did. I remember watching his Lafayette highlights being like, this guy was Shanahan. But Elijah Mitchell doesn't have the power to like, you know, drive through guys and gain like extra 2, 3, 5 yards after contact. I think this guy is going to be that like late in the game, just like we're going to grind out this win with our 10, 15 point lead or whatever. So actually,
he's much better through the. I'm with you. Right? He's much. He seems more of like a one cut type back, but he actually does have some wiggle, and he is pretty quick. He's actually faster than Trey Sermon, at least when Trey Sermon was coming out. They're about the same size. I think he has a little bit more weight on him, but he runs 4.48. Like he's not slow by any means. And what I've seen on the tape that I've seen anyway, when he does hit the hole and he does get to the open field, he can pull away a little bit. And I think that was a little bit of some of the I don't want to say concern, some of the issue there with Elijah Mitchell. He kind of hits that, and once he gets to his top speed, he kind of gets tired out, and guys have caught him. Now, I'm not saying guys won't do that with Ty Davis-Price because, once you're getting the amount of carries that Elijah Mitchell did get, you're going to be tired. I totally understand that. But I also felt like you had just said, he churns his legs. He's a bigger back, a little bit harder to bring down. Now, I didn't think he was perfect.
Like he's just like angry at the ground.
Right. I've been saying, and I think Chris agrees with me. I think Chris said this as well, too. I was tuning in, listening to the podcast last night. But he reminds me of Leonard Fournette. He really does. And I think when I say that, I have to say like what I mean by that, because Leonard Fournette, the prospect coming out, I think I can comfortably say he was a generational prospect. Coming out, Leonard Fournette was the truth. The dude was a beast. But when I say he reminds me of Leonard Fournette, I'm talking about the NFL Leonard Fournette, what I've seen from him in the NFL. And what I mean by that is, yes, he is a bigger dude that can plow through guys, will get those tough yards. But also, I think Leonard Fournette is a really good pass blocking running back as well too. And I thought the same thing with TDP. He's a really good pass blocker. Just some similar traits there. But at the same time, one thing that I'm a little concerned about that I think will get fixed over time, but something that I've noticed, when he does run into his linemen from time to time as well too. Now, early on, I'm not concerned about that because I thought Elijah Mitchell wasn't great early on in the season either. But your vision can improve. And I thought Elijah Mitchell's vision improved throughout the course of the season last year. I expect TDP to only get better as he gets more comfortable in the offense as well. This guy's really intriguing, though. I think we all agree we didn't necessarily love where he was picked, but the player on the team is super intriguing. I think he has the talent and the ability to become RB1. Like, I truly think he could do that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I love the competition. I love that you have guys back there. I don't want to continually see Deebo Samuel back in the backfield. If you want to use that as a threat, here and there, I like that. Make it be dessert. But I don't want that to be the meal. Let these guys who play the position be the meal, if you know what I mean.
I think what gets overlooked a little bit about Ty Davis-Price, as I went through the tape and the evaluations, the LSU offense was really disastrous for much of last year, particularly along the offensive line. They struggled. Their run blocking was not very good, and I think that kind of drags down what people thought of the running back as a prospect running behind that offensive line. And I think that he produced really well under the circumstances, particularly against Kentucky. Ran really hard against a good Kentucky defense, and I was impressed with his motor. And as you pointed out, he is really hard to bring down. He keeps churning his legs and pushing forward. He gets really low, and I think it is something that we didn't have very much of last year. The production behind Elijah Mitchell was not ideal. Guys were hurt and just generally not very productive, and that led to Deebo having to come in and take those carries late in the year because Sermon and Mitchell and Hasty just were not effective enough. And the drop off from Elijah Mitchell to the other guys was so stark that they felt the need to reinforce that position and take some of the load off of Deebo and Elijah Mitchell. And hopefully Sermon can take a step forward this year as well, but we definitely needed more from RB2 than what we got last year.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, that's a reason why the 49ers go out and get Ty Davis-Price, so that they can now go back to the 2019 version where they had 137 carries split between Raheem Mostert, Tevin Coleman. You also have a similar combo. I'm not saying Elijah Mitchell is Raheem Mostert, doesn't have that breakaway, not necessarily the breakaway, but doesn't have that caliber of speed to reach the outside. But you have your speedish type of option, and then you have your power back in a way in Ty Davis Price, who's been able to maneuver in between the tackles and should flourish with a better offensive line. And then in the third option, you have Jeff Wilson Jr., who's still there, just Mr. Reliable in a way as a veteran out there, and now fully healthy after coming back from the meniscus tear probably a little too early last year. And so it's a strong running back group. For me, my favorite pick, one that hasn't been said yet, I'll stay away from Drake Jackson, who's obviously an A-plus pick, but to me, it was Kalia Davis. And the reason is the 49ers like to shore up that defensive line, obviously. Select 2 players in this draft, have around 11 to 14 bodies to compete for spots. But Kalia Davis, to me, was a third or fourth, somewhere in that range in terms of talent, because he's like Jamal said, he's a DJ Jones type of player in terms of traits. He's got the speed, but also the size. He's 302 pounds, but plays with an explosiveness that you don't expect from a guy that big, because he used to play linebacker, so he has the bend of a linebacker at the defensive tackle position, which is important as an interior run defender, as a disruptor out in that backfield. And I think the most important caliber or quality going into 2022 for Kalia Davis isn't even something that he possesses. It's the fact that you can place him on either the NFI list or the PUP list for the first couple of weeks of the season, let him fully get healthy and carry an extra body on that defensive line for the first 6 weeks when players are starting to get back into game shape. You preserve those bodies a little more and have an extra contributor at either the defensive tackle or edge position. And with the 49ers, it's all swirled into one because they like to move people around. And I also like the intrigue of Kalia Davis because you don't necessarily have to play him as a nose tackle like you did have to play him with DJ Jones. He can slide into the 3 tech as well. You have guys like Hassan Ridgeway. You have other defensive tackles that you can slot in there like a Kevin Givens. And now you have a 2 defensive tackle front should you want to give a guy like Ark Armstead some rest, Javon Kinlaw some rest, and things like that. And so I think it just gives the 49ers some flexibility with the lineups that they want to use. But to end today's show, I wanted to get your thoughts, guys. Who was your favorite undrafted free agent?
I like Donovan West.
Yeah.
Just because of the position he plays, the fact that a lot of people did think he was going to, I thought like, okay, I don't know about third round, but I thought like he should go like probably latest in the 5th. Like he was one of those names when the draft was going on. I was looking at the best available and I kept seeing Donovan's name and I kept refreshing. I was like, really? He's still there? So to be able to get him, hopefully Alex Mack stays. Hopefully he can make the team, spend a year learning how to just be the starting center of that offense and develop over time with Trey and build that rapport. If he can develop into a starting center, that to me is just a huge value. So yeah, Donovan West is my favorite undrafted free agent.
Someone who I really, really liked was Jason Poe. Talk about another guy who's really versatile on the offensive line. Played guard and center. Yeah, and fullback, exactly. And so I have
everything.
Yeah. So in his bench press, 40 time vert, and his shuttle, he was in the top 90 percentiles for all of those. And I think that going undrafted, that's incredible value for the Niners. So.
Yeah. I want to mention Leon O'Neal Jr., another guy that, we thought was going to come off the board, maybe 5th, 6th round. And, was surprised to see him go undrafted. And, the Niners obviously liked him an awful lot, had him in for an interview. And, I really like his tenacity, his toughness. I think, obviously he has some things to work on, but, I believe that he could be someone that we could groom into an eventual starter at safety. And, a rather sooner contributor on special teams. We start to see a little bit more depth at that position, with Odom and Hufanga and O'Neal, that maybe they didn't feel the need that we all did to go out there and grab a safety in free agency, that they like, the options that they had there. And I think, he was an incredible value along with, Donovan West.
Yeah, I'm in a similar light. I mean, Rohan, you asked me to name one. It's hard. I really do like our undrafted class in general. I think we killed it. I won't talk about Donovan West because you guys already did. The only thing I'll say about him, I do truly think him and even Jason Poe, in my personal opinion, have a really good shot to lock down that center position if Alex Mack doesn't return. And even if he does come back, I truly think one of those two guys has the chance to be the center for the future, the next 10 years, 10, 12 years. And I think in 2-3 years from now, we're going to look back on this UDFA class like, wow, we got that guy there, and he's a true contributor and maybe even a household 49ers name. So that's what I'll say about those guys. One name I'll bring up that just intrigues me quite a bit, Tay Martin. I think I said a lot of similar things last year about Austin Watkins because I really liked Austin Watkins in the UDFA as well too. But Tay Martin, this dude just intrigues me. Not the fastest guy ever, but he's a decent size, frame, body. In my opinion, really good hands. Has the ability to make contested catches as well. I think he's a really, really, really solid route runner as well too. I don't expect him to be wide receiver 1, 2, 3, 4, or maybe even 5. But I do think if they carry 6, he has a chance to make some noise. And even if he doesn't this year, he's someone who intrigues me going forward. I think he can be a really solid wide receiver. I really like that pick. Just gives me a little bit of intrigue at the wide receiver position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Niners have some good history at developing, UDFAs. We have Mosley and Al-Shair, these guys who came in as undrafted free agents and
Kendrick Bourne
ended up being major contributors here.
Yeah,
there
quite a few guys. Yeah,
so
they deserve credit for that. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this class has the ability to have one or two, maybe more guys who come in and end up with final roster spots. I think they did a great job. You said.
Yeah, Brian, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say pretty much everybody that everyone else had mentioned. Feel like I'm trying to like pull straws here to see like who's left on here that I also liked. I liked Tay Martin, who obviously Donovan West, Leon O'Neal, Jason Poe. Those are all fun. Tay Martin, I really like just like his body control and agility. He looked like he was just making all these like just really impressive like acrobatic contested catches. So it's always really fun having a guy who can just make not necessarily like they have to be a wow play, but like you throw it, he adjusts and just can like reach out and snag it no matter where it's at. Also, I haven't had a chance to watch the tape, but I watched like 60 seconds highlights, which is obviously how you scout. But Taylor Hawkins out of San Diego State, like a corner/safety. I saw him like lining up at corner, and then I saw him hitting guys like a linebacker, and I was like, I'm gonna have to watch this guy because I know that we all really wanted a safety. This guy runs a 4.5. It looks like he can cover like a corner, and he looks like he likes to enforce like a box safety. So I'm going to have to watch because I hadn't heard about him, but they picked him up. I watched 30 seconds of highlights, and I was like, I like this kid. So, yeah, I guess those would probably be my two. And one thing, I know we didn't really talk about Danny Gray that much, but
I was about to say that.
What he's going to do, like stretching this offense, I can't wait to see how he's going to open things up. Not only just like vertical deep shots, but like clearing out over the middle. Like, it's going to open
like
up
a real clear out.
Open up the entire field.
You've got Deebo, Ayuk, or assuming Deebo stays, you have Deebo, Ayuk. Then you could have like, I don't know, Jawan Jennings or Ray McLeod. And then you got Danny Gray. George Kittle is a pass catcher with Kyle Shanahan scheming everything. There's a lot of
possibilities. 4 through Danny Gray just streaking. Like, wow.
And Brock Purdy at quarterback, man.
Let's go.
That we go with a couple of empty sets even this year. We saw the Rams implemented a ton last year where you have 5 wide receivers out, 5 offensive linemen and the quarterback, and you have those 4 guys that we just mentioned alongside George Kittle at the tight end position. Just an amazing it's not necessarily going to be the most realistic option, but at least it provides you with a ton of vertical threats with your rushing threat at the quarterback position. But for me, my top 3 guys out of this UDFA class in terms of talent and who I liked the most were two we mentioned in Donovan West and Jason Poe. I thought they have a pretty good shot to make the roster. And then the third guy is a guy who I think is a little more underrated, and that's UNC linebacker Jeremiah Gemmell. And for me, UNC linebacker Jeremiah Gemmell he's a guy where you can understand why he fell. He's only 225 pounds, 225 pounds at the linebacker position. And really in the NFL, you see some teams are scared to draft those type of guys because you don't know how to implement these smaller linebackers into your defense. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah fell from a first-round pick to number 53 or 52 overall to the Cleveland Browns. But then there are those small select amount of teams that know how to implement these guys, and they become gems. And so for me, Gemmell, I think he's pretty instinctive. He was nicknamed the General for that specific reason at UNC itself. And to me, he's a good leader. He has that like the intangibles, but he's also instinctive. And despite what his 40 time might indicate, I think he ran in the 4.7s. He's got pretty good range at his size and speed for a linebacker. So as a practice squad guy or as a potential Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles replacement as a special teams guy, I think that he'd be a solid intrigue, or he at least intrigued my interests or in my tastes as a practice squad player, because we likely can't roster another linebacker with having the three guys that we had last year alongside Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles and Oren Burks, who we signed. But a practice squad player like that who could potentially elevate into a 53-man roster spot, that's a solid guy for me for the 49ers.
And we know they can develop linebackers.
Oh, yeah.
So I love that one too. Yeah.
Jimmy G used to play linebacker.
Aziz, Jonas Griffith. We can also transition safeties to linebackers pretty well too. So hey, we never
Trey
know.
Lance plays
see
safety.
What happens.
He's recruited to play safety. It's just opening the doors for Brock Purdy.
Yeah,
It
he was.
made a lot more sense.
Hey, Rohan, can I ask you a question before you close out? Just before you close out, I want to know what you guys do think about Tariq Castro-Fields, because I've heard people I respect a lot say they think he might be a candidate to switch to safety this year. And I can see it. I see why they would say that. I see the traits there. Totally get it. But I actually like him as an outside corner. I think he has the athleticism, the speed, and I'll be real. He actually was a better prospect coming out than Ambry Thomas was last year, in my opinion. So as an outside corner, I like it. I do think he has some stiff hips, a little bit stiff hips. I see that too. So I kind of was curious what you guys think. Even if he does end up switching to safety, I feel like it probably wouldn't happen this year, because I still think that we're going to have Dante Johnson, who's going to potentially be that Swiss Army knife safety and corner, depending on injuries, kind of what happens. I was curious what you guys thought, because I like him as corner.
And
I brought him up earlier in the show, and he tested athletically absolutely off the charts. Fast, and I think he has good ball skills. I do see him as an outside corner long term. There is some rawness in there, but I think that he has the potential to be another one of these, 5th, 6th round steals that the Niners are so adept at grabbing. And a lot of people had him in the top 100, and I think that's another one that we pulled out of a compensatory pick and turned into a long-term contributor.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And me, I know Jamal, I think you were in that space when I was running on the day of the draft. I think just a couple minutes later, I actually did agree with that. I personally thought he could have transitioned to safety, and I thought, well, we just drafted Womack on draft day itself. I thought we just drafted Womack for that slot corner, at least to compete there. I thought Tariq Castro-Fields, with the amount of depth that we had at the cornerback position, could compete to start at safety opposite of Jimmy Ward. Now, obviously, Dante Johnson, who was a guy that we shouldn't be surprised if he starts there. But Tariq Castro-Fields, the one knack on him is the hips. I think he's a little rigid at the hip area, despite being so athletically gifted with that 4.38 speed and the long frame. And I think that that's where it translates a little better to safety, where you're not necessarily utilizing the hips as much, but more the speed and the range, right? The one knack on Tariq Castro-Fields is the tackling. The 49ers really, really like tackling at the safety position. Tariq Castro-Fields, that's the area where he needs to develop the most. And so I think unless he shows significant improvement in that range over the course of the offseason by some like accord, I don't necessarily think that he'd start there. But I do think that he could be a versatile backup at the safety position if the 49ers want to move on from a guy like Tarvarius Moore and elect to keep another corner like Jason Verrett on the roster because the 49ers there's so much depth on that roster. And I think that if they try and waive him and move him to the practice squad, he's going to be picked up because he's too athletically gifted for the 49ers. And they're going to lose out on him if they try and do that. So I do think he remains on the 53-man roster. But yeah, it's a great question because it's intriguing to see, is he going to end up as a corner or as a safety? Because we have tons of depth, especially at the corner position going into this offseason.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I think camp is going to be really fun. I want to be there. I think we have a super deep roster, actually, especially after the draft. And so the camp battles are going to be interesting really everywhere. But I think corner is going to be really interesting. Safety, whoever starts, whether it's George Odom, whether it's, whoever, I think it's going to be really interesting what happens there as well, too. I think just the last little comment I would say, and I think Brian wanted to say something as well, too. What do you – I don't think –
question.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, just in regards to Tyreek, I 100% think he's an outside corner. What I saw, and again, I'm not a huge scout, but I watched 1 or 2 games and his Senior Bowl stuff. To me, he looked at his best and most comfortable when he was in like a pressed man type of assignment, and he looked his most uncomfortable when he was in an off zone. And if you're telling me you want to convert a press man corner who's not the greatest at tackling into a full-time off-zone safety, to me that makes zero sense. I understand the hip stiffness, but to me he's a press man corner.
Hey, Ambry was a press man too, and they like to use him off coverage too. So we never really know. I can't say either way.
For like half a season.
Right, absolutely.
I think that's something that the Niners have shown that the intention of moving to more press man. I think Ambry was drafted in that light. Travarius Ward, who excels in press man, and the guys they drafted this year. I think we're going to see more of that. Ambry was used a little bit off last year because we were still kind of schemed that way. But I think we're going to be moving more to press man. And Womack, I don't think anyone mentioned, even at 5'9", he is super long.
Yep.
His wingspan at 6'3". Yep. I don't think that his height is going to be a limitation.
No.
I think he can absolutely play not just in the slot, but he could play outside with his length if necessary.
You and I see eye to eye on quite a few things. Just the things that I've heard you say today are a lot of things that I'm right there with you. I think Rohan was in the space actually the other day when we were I was talking about the corners. And I said, the one thing that I said was, so the 49ers, they do play a lot of off-man coverage, right? But I think with the draft picks, with Ambry, as you just said, with Tariq Castro-Fields, and with what I said was with the way our season ended last year in the NFC Championship game, how did we get beat? We were getting sliced and diced in off-man coverage. Odell Beckham Jr., Cooper Kupp, they were dicing us up in off-man coverage. Now, does that mean the 49ers are going to go totally towards press man? No, I don't think so. But what I said was, I think on specific downs, they have the guys now to say, okay, this is a big down, 3rd down and 7, game on the line. I need someone to go get in that MF's face, go get in that face and stop this play. And I think that we have the versatility to do that now. And I think the 49ers are a team that likes the versatility all throughout the roster, not just offense, not just defense. And I've said that multiple times on podcasts and just talking to people now. The times I've said versatility on offense and defense makes me I know for a fact now, yes, they value certain traits, but they value to be able to switch and form based on the opponent as well, too. And I think going forward with the selection of Ambry last year, with Tariq and with Sam Womack, I think you get guys that you can say, look, I need you to get in this guy's face and potentially end this play. And then with the addition of Travarius Ward too. So no, glad you guys said that.
Yeah, I think they're doing all that because they really
a lot
want
of the
to tighten
times
up on,
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say a lot of the times you
ahead.
combine a blitz with a press because that extra 1 or 2 seconds that you get pressing is enough time for the blitz to hit. And we know that they like to blitz in key situations.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say those third and shorts, I think that's something they want to not have to play as loose on. I think they really like the Charvarius Ward signing. That was a clear indication. And the guys they did draft and Ambry Thomas, I think they want to make sure, they tighten those things up to not make it so easy. Because especially with the pass rush they do have, you're making it easier on all parts of your defense. So yeah, and kind of like what Rohan was saying about Tariq Castro-Fields, I feel the same way. Like he really could end up being someone where I feel like maybe they're looking at him to develop him into a safety, even if it takes a few years, just because.
Sorry, Chris, I love this
comment. Great problem to have. Yeah, I saw that. But yeah, I mean, if with all the depth they do have a corner, like where is he going to slot in? Because he's probably not going to start anywhere outside. I think that's pretty much set in stone. And then the nickel spot, there's so many guys that can compete. So if you really want to get the most out of him, maybe in their eyes, it's let's develop this guy over the next few years, see if he can become a starting caliber safety. But it'll be interesting to see, like Jamal was saying, like I think the camp is going to be awesome. There's competition everywhere, especially on the offensive line. There's starting jobs to go around, and it's just going to kind of be like Kyle doesn't really play politics with that stuff. It's, hey, go out there, win the job. I don't care where you were drafted or if you were drafted at all. Like Elijah Mitchell was drafted in the 6th round last year. Trey Sermon was drafted in the 3rd. One guy barely played. So it's going to be really cool to see who wins which jobs in camp.
Yeah, and real quick, going to Brian's point about man press and blitz, I wanted to get back to Womack because I think Womack, like he had some of those blitzing moments in college, and I think they're going to be best expressed in the system, right? At the slot position, you're a little bigger than K1 Williams, who excelled at that role in the past years, where he could utilize that small frame, but he had that toughness to get to the quarterback on those timely blitzes we saw on multiple occasions from D'Amico last year. But now with a 190-pound corner who's got a ton of speed, guess what? That presents like an imposing challenge on defenses on those 3rd and shorts, because now they have to account for another body and much quicker than they might have had to before. So while K1 definitely is the more technical cornerback, I think that also presents an extra challenge, and it would provide the 49ers a benefit with that man press scheme that they looked to go to with Charvarius Ward at the helm, with Emmanuel Mosley, who played well in the system last year, and Ambry Thomas, who was drafted to play that type of cornerback as well. So great point there, Brian.
Can I ask one last quick question? We don't have to take forever.
Let's go.
Okay. So one thing
I
I
got
hear
a
a lot.
cold pizza waiting.
Oh, my bad. We can dip out if it's time. No problem. Okay, I'll ask it anyway. Okay, so the question here is, I hear a lot of people kind of talk about corners and their lack of tackling. How many corners do you think, outside corners specifically, how many outside corners are really good tacklers? Like, does one come to your mind that you're just like, oh, great, super great outside tackling corner?
Richard Sherman.
Okay, Richard Sherman, that's one. Can we name like 6?
Mosley's a really good tackler.
But but the thing is, the point that you're making, Maul, is very good, right? Like especially the outside corner position, you're not expected. Like people don't
like you're not a slot corner,
right?
Yeah,
exactly. I think slot corner gets that responsibility to be a better tackler. So yeah, I don't think it's a big deal if you're not a great tackler, and that's what I mean when I'm talking about Tariq Castro-Fields. I think he will be a good outside corner because I don't think you have to be super. Now, if you are awesome, that's great. I love that. But I think that sometimes we can overblow how much of an outside corner, or really just a corner in general, isn't that great of a tackler. Now, you do want your better tackling corners to play like slot corner or nickel. So I just wanted to bring it up and see what you guys thought about that too. I think it gets overblown a little bit.
In the Niners scheme, they rarely leave those outside corners on an island, so they usually have safety help deep as well. So I mean,
cover 2, cover 3.
Exactly. You just want to have good ball skills, be able to break up passes, and hopefully that safety's better at tackling than you are. So
right.
I mean, your job as an outside corner is to cover your man.
Yep.
And tackling is a nice bonus. I mean, even to some extent, the ball skills are a great bonus, but sometimes we get away from their job is to cover. Like we have a certain corner in Dallas that made all this noise and all these interceptions, but couldn't cover a receiver to save his life. The job is to stay with your man and not get beat, and everything else is a bonus.
Right. Yeah. You talk about, wanting turnovers or ball hawking corners, but ideally, how do turnovers happen? Pressure and mistakes. You're not just going to make a crazy play. There's pressure on the quarterback's face and maybe an underthrown pass because of that pressure, or the corner was in great position, right? So you want guys that are in position that when those mistakes come, can you capitalize on those? I think a lot of people say, oh, we want these ball hawking safeties. We want these ball hawking corners. Well, fact of the matter is your defense has to be able to capitalize on those mistakes when they're provided to you. We're not going to have an interception every week. You're not going to have a corner who gets an interception every 2 weeks. Trayvon Diggs, he just did that. Good for him. But as you said, there's also the coverage as well, too. So if you can be in position consistently, I can tell you right now for a fact, Shanahan and the coaching staff is going to love that more than the guy that's just going to get you like 7 or 8 interceptions. That's good. Like, I don't want to take that away. Getting the ball back for your offense is really good. Not taking anything away from that. But at the same time, you're not going to see the field consistently to be able to do that if you can't cover your guy. So,
right. And Diggs drove me absolutely insane because he gambled incessantly trying to jump routes. And that's where a lot of the interceptions came from. But he also gave up 1,000+ yards because he gambled. And you don't really want, you don't want your number one corner just constantly, gambling on routes.
Right.
The job
that's
is
something I'm curious to see.
Your man.
And that's one thing I'm curious to see with Tariq Castro Fields, because he does get a little bit beat on those double moves. I'm not mad at him though, because a lot of corners do coming out. So that's just my final comment. Sorry, Rohan, I'm just taking over here.
You good, because more questions means more conversation. I like it. Real quick before we end, I'll take this one. Do you see Mosley moving to the slot to give the young guys to develop? This is a very interesting question. We might talk about this on the next roundtable. But real quick to end this, I don't necessarily see Mosley moving to the slot. I think he profiled better as an outside corner. And I personally don't think he'd like to change himself in a contract year where he makes more money going on the outside. So I personally don't see that, especially because the 49ers probably want to remain consistent. Verrett on the inside actually could be an interesting thing, because he's he's not even 6 foot. I think he's 5'10", 176. So his build and his physicality kind of match a slot corner. I think he'd be better profiled there to compete at the position. But obviously, a lot of these guys can slide inside or out should an injury occur. So I think that that's an important thing to keep in mind too, because where they start the year might not necessarily mean be where they end the year, especially with the amount of injuries that we have.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. We got two guys like that. Verrett and Mosley, two shorter guys, but they're outside cornerbacks.
Exactly. But guys, thank you guys so much for coming on. I mean, this was an amazing time, just like we had last time. This was an amazing roundtable. All of you guys, all the guests, be sure to hit all of them up on Twitter. All of their links are in the description to their Twitters. Real quick, Brian, shout out anything you're doing. Jamal, shout out anything you're doing. And Chris, I know you three have podcasts, so anything in the future or immediate future, just quickly shout out. Brian, Jamal, and Chris, we can go in that order.
Yeah, just look that up wherever. Twitter, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Brian Card 99 podcast. Check it out. Hopefully you enjoy it. If not, you can always unsubscribe.
No, you won't be disappointed. Brian knows what he's talking about. Very underrated. I hope he gets more eyes on his stuff because he's very good at what he does. You can find me. Said it earlier. You can call me Young Jaw. You can call me Young J.A. My Twitter handle, YoungJaw49er. That's where you can find me at. I also have a YouTube channel as well called Niner Talk with Jasper and Jamal. We'll be starting a new series pretty soon called Under the Helmet, where I'm talking with some draft prospects. I've been in communication with a couple guys who still currently aren't signed yet, but their agents have been talking to some teams, so there's some interest there. But the main point of Under the Helmet is just to get to know some of these prospects a little bit more, not just as a football player, but also as the person that they are too. I've said it a couple times ago on when I was on with Rohan the first time, but what kind of spurred this was the passing of, what's his name again? Dwayne Haskins. When Dwayne Haskins passed away, I said, you know what? I want to do something where we can see these players as human beings and not just athletes. I don't want to see any more posts where you're seeing, oh, dude passed away. He was having a fledgling career and then he died. We don't need to be seeing that in the same sentence. Right. That's not how we should be seeing these young men and young women. There's young women out there as well too. So that was the main reason behind it. We'll be getting to know this prospects, not only just, we'll talk about that stuff too, but we'll also get to know a little bit more about the person, how they got interested in football, maybe some of their life upbringing as well too. I'm just intrigued by that, and I think that these athletes deserve to have a platform where they can talk about themselves a little bit as the person that they are, the entrepreneur maybe that they are, or the other interests outside of football. So we can see them as more than just, not just an athlete, right? They're human beings. They have brains. We should see them as human beings.
Definitely. Great message to end it there, because that is one of the most important things when we talk about players. We talked about that same message with Deebo Samuel earlier today. But guys, all five of you, thank you guys so much for going on.
You forgot Chris.
Thank you.
Oh shoot, my bad.
Thanks for having me.
I was gonna say the same thing.
Cut it.
I was gonna say the same thing. Just hit up my Twitter right there. You'll find my link
You brought
tree.
up that Brock Purdy stuff earlier today, talking
Yeah.
about
If you want the Brock Purdy, I'm just kidding. I'm not giving you Brock Purdy content. You can't pay me to do that. But basically, I talk Niners. I'm gonna try to get more people on there too. If you go to my Twitter and my bio, my link tree's there. It's every platform. I'm also getting into doing more Warriors content. I've always done that, but I definitely want to do more of that too, especially with the playoffs going on. I've got a lot of stuff to say, so I'm definitely gonna be doing a lot more, especially as we're in these playoffs. So if you like Niners, if you like the Warriors, hit up my channel, follow the Spotify, Apple Podcast, wherever it is, and I'll be putting more content out there and try to get others involved. So yeah.
And Chris says Kyrie over Dame, just so y'all know.
Kyrie is okay. Okay, listen. Call me when Damian Lillard has done something all-time level. Like have the greatest handle of. You know what? There's a 26-minute highlight clip of Kyrie Irving. If any of you think Damian Lillard is greater than him, go watch the highlight clip. You will change your mind. You're gonna be sitting there watching and you're gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, I've watched 25 minutes of this, and it's gonna end." And you're gonna be like, "I need more." Damian Lillard, no way, dude. No crown for second round bounces. No crown for that. Sorry.
Controversial takes is what you'll show up or what you'll get with Chris's show. But Reaper Maru, Eric, thank you guys also both for coming on. And most importantly, the chat.
Sure.
Thank you guys for buzzing, keeping us entertained. And with these questions, the 2 questions I saw, we'll make sure to address with the next episode. For me personally, be sure to tune in this weekend. I've got a good busy docket as well. Tomorrow I'm talking Warriors with Ryan Smith, Larry Kruger's producer at 5 o'clock. Then we've got 49ers First Takes. I'm going on his show. Be sure to show him some love, 6 o'clock. And then on Sunday, we've got Jay in the Bay. So busy docket. But as I said, thank you guys all for coming on. Everyone have a great night. And